All right, so next up we have contracts and agreements. I want to share a few things that I have in my contract, some of the clauses that I have, or even policies if you want to even call it that. But I think that these are really important for you to have in your contract. Again, I am not a legal professional, so I cannot absolutely tell you that these are the things. I'm just sharing, again, some of those things that I do have in my contract that I want to make sure that I explain a little thoroughly and why they are in my contracts. Okay. So the first one up, I want to talk about pay schedules, and then also my services being outlined in my contract. So the reason that I like to put my actual pay schedule inside of my contracts are because they need to know and they need to be able to see it. And I like for them to be able to see it in a couple of places, shall I say, right? So inside of my contract, it will be a breakdown of like by months. So the first one, the first retainer fee is going to be paid at contract signing. Your second payment will be due. And then again, you figure out what that schedule is when you're making the contract. So it may be, 30 days from signing agreement or signing contract. Payment three, 60 days before event date. Payment four, 30 days before event date. So again, whatever your pay schedule is that works for you needs to be inside of that based on the time frame that you have for your particular event. Again, so if it's 30 days, that you're even having to plan the event, you figure out how that should be. So is it that the retainer is 50% of total fees due and the remaining 50%, which is payment number two, is due 15 days from contract signing, whatever it is, but I like to have my payment schedule inside of that contract. And then of course, we also talk about it and go through that information in that welcome meeting that we talked about previously. Okay. So again, those are really important to have. The other one that I was referencing is services. So I like to have all of my services, which is literally a copy and paste from a proposal that I have sent or even in the invoice, right? So you can have an invoice and it will say, event management and production services, and it will have all of those things bulleted on what those services are that we take care of. Speaker concierge, vendor procurement, serve as, concierge for vendors on day of. Again, every single thing that it is that you want to highlight for your services to be for your client, those need to be inside of your contract as well. Again, it is literally a copy and a paste over into some portion of your contract. Super important that you have that. Again, you want for them to be able to see it several times, and also it be a reference if they need to go back to say, oh, well, I thought you were doing the hotel blocks. Well, no, that isn't a service that we provide or that is contracted with you, but that is something that we can definitely look into taking care of for you. And I'll let you know what that, additional compensation would look like. So that's what I wanted to share on those couple of points there. The next clause that I have, or again, policy that I have inside of my contract is in reference to travel and lodging. Yes, this is an additional cost for your clients, not for you. I have seen a lot of different event professionals not add or consider these things when they are planning events. Travel and lodging is a cost. And if you're not making sure that you are making it clear that your clients are responsible for, of course, you don't always know what that price will be, right? So it can't be in your contract that, the cost for one room at $155 over 3 days. You can't really put that inside of your contract because you probably aren't that far as planning goes in the process, or you just don't know yet, right? So with the travel and the lodging, again, it is inside of my contract, but the way that I kind of have it worded is client is responsible for any travel outside of 30-mile radius of service provider, aka myself, home office or, address. And of course, your address is going to be in your contract and all of that good stuff, be it a PO box or your physical address. But mine is, again, 30 miles outside of that radius. Then it is now the responsibility for the client to be responsible for the travel. You can also put in kind of quotation marks, travel could mean lodging, which is your accommodations, your hotel. It could be mileage. It can also be, you can add in there even about having a per diem per person. Per diems for me are for travel days, if we have to go out of town, or again, outside of that 30-day radius, for everyone on my team that will be traveling. Okay. So if it is myself and if it is a team member, it is per diem. And what of course a per diem is the money for us to be able to feed ourselves throughout that particular portion of the travel. So if we're there for 2 days and per diem for each person is $50, then of course that's $100 that the client would be responsible for. So again, you can put in there the amount for the per diem, but you don't know what travel you really have when, again, you're doing your contract signing. So just having that clause in there to say, any travel and lodging you will be responsible for. And it is to be reimbursed within 7 days of receiving that invoice. That is how my contract states as far as travel and lodging goes. One of the other things about lodging is, again, you can totally do what works for you, for your business, where you are, and what you feel comfortable with. But for lodging, I also have it in my contract where it is one person per room versus one person per bed. Again, whatever works for you. So per bed, of course, means they can get you one room and it will be for 2 beds inside of there. So that means 2 people per room. One person per room means exactly that. I'm not sharing a room with anyone, right? Again, this is your business and how you feel about taking care of your team, and of course, budget wise for the client. But they do need to know going into it that if there's travel and lodging or accommodations that need to be had for you and your team, that it is their responsibility to take care of those things. Okay. Very important. We talked about it before. How does my hierarchy work? It is my team, it's my vendor partners, and then my clients. So we got to make sure that we take care of ourselves and we take care of our team members. Okay. All right, so next up, I want to talk about force majeure. I'm sure that you guys have probably heard this term kind of roaming around more than often around 2020, 2021, right? And it is because that falls into force majeure, why a lot of people were trying to use that particular clause per se to cancel their event or postpone their event and trying to get money back from event professionals, right? So what force majeure covers is things that are acts of God, right? So that is hurricanes, floods, natural disasters in a sense. So that's any type of force of God, meaning that the event cannot take place because of this happening, right? So of course with flooding, it may be something as far as or a hurricane, a Florida, venue, or a place that you're having your event in Florida, and the hurricane is hurricane season, right? And the venue then decides that, we have crazy flooding in here and we are not going to be able to do the event, that you guys have in 4 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. We know that the ballroom is not going to be available. We know that now we have to do all of the carpet replacement, things of that nature. Again, with that being the case, we're talking about your contract and your agreement. That they can't say, hey, we can't have our event, so we need our money back from you. That does not take away from you doing your job. What it means is that now you have to possibly do even more work to find a new venue or work with the client to be able to do an event postponement. Now, with the event postponement or change, myself personally, and also in my contract, it would not cost my client an actual event postponement fee because it would fall underneath the force majeure. Another thing with force majeure is if there are any type of government shutdowns or regulations or restrictions in place for you to not have your event. Again, a great example for that is COVID. With COVID, the government shut down a lot of places and spaces. Most of us were having to, shelter in place and all of these things. Of course, my business was affected. And of course, if some of you guys are actually in the industry currently, then you know what that time was for you as well. So with that, the government shutdown, again, we were unable to do events for a certain period of time. So we had to work with a lot of our clients to figure out once things opened back up, what those new dates were going to be. Of course, there were not any fees that would be due to them, but did we have conversations with clients in reference to like, hey, Ashley, can I push that payment back? Or right now, it's just, something that I am not able to afford. I really don't know myself. So again, your contract is the black and white and how the rules, shall be and how they should be followed. But of course, this is your business. Customer service and compassion and things of that nature can also be a part of it. But I always say whatever you agree to or what those changes will be, put it in black and white. It can be a simple recap of a conversation that you've had with your client. Hey, so great talking with you today. I know that these are really hard times and you cannot forecast moving forward what you want the event to be. We will circle back in 30 days. Of course, during this time frame, no payments will be done, but we will circle back with what works best for both of us at a later time. Thanks so much for sharing, da 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 da. It can be that simple. And it doesn't mean that you have to go in and do an amendment to your contract. It just means that you're making the certain, revisions that are needed on your behalf, but you're also making sure that you're documenting those things. So those are some of the things that I wanted to kind of share about what force majeure is. And again, just to at least have that policy in your contract. All right, so next up we have our abuse clause. It's that simple. It is a zero tolerance for abuse of any type, be it verbal, written, or physical. Thank God that has never been the case of any of my clients that we have dealt with my company, but that is in place just in case there is any type of abuse again towards my team or myself. The reason that that is in place because if it becomes a very intolerable environment to serve, then I can't do that. And I would definitely would not put my team in a place to do that either. So the clause that we have inside of our contract states that if there is any type of abuse, that it will be a written statement provided to the client, and all services will stop immediately, and all fees are due within 30 days of being invoiced or receiving that particular event cancellation in a sense. The reason that we do that is because it was not something that was in a sense desired, but not only desired, it wasn't anything that was anticipated, right? But the work has been done. The work that we could have done for them should still be paid for. So in a sense, it's a huge knock to say, let's treat everybody right. Let's be respectable. Let's be polite, and let's get through this planning process. And again, zero tolerance for any type of abuse. So again, it's something for you guys to consider. And it's also a way to make sure that your client is being respectable at all times. So you have that little blurb in there if you ever need to go back to it. So something to consider. I wanted to share with you guys of highlights and clauses that we have inside of our contract is exclusivity. The reason that we have that in there is because whatever the service is that we are providing, again, another one of the reasons that I say I like to outline the services that we are providing to the client. There cannot be another service provider providing those same services that we offer. Reason being, this is where you shine. This is why you were hired. This is why you are the expert. So I think that it's important to have something in your contract that states that. And again, one of the great reasons for you to have everything outlined that you will be providing. Let's just say, for instance, that you're a florist and you have that contract with your client. Things can kind of get swayed when they have another florist that's going to do the stage, another florist that's going to do, the welcome or reception, the registration area, and so on. So again, you want to make sure that what your professional expertise are the only ones that are showing up in that space. And again, you can always do that by making sure that you have everything outlined in your contract, but you also have that exclusivity clause inside of the contract as well. So I hope those things have really helped you, and you can again go back and have a conversation with your lawyer or a legal professional to kind of even just take a look at it. But do your research and figure out what works best for your company, where you are. And one last tip about your contracts: take the time each year to go back. Maybe it's the end of the year when things have slowed down for you, or the top of the year before you really get rolling. Whatever it is that works for you, but just kind of go in and take a look at your contract and see if anything needs to be adjusted to make sure that moving forward with new clients, that your contract is ironclad for your needs. Okay?